Okay. Hi. Welcome to More Greatest Attorney 2. We're starting our first Dance of Deduction today. And I'm going to take a sip of water before I even start trying to do the Sholmes voice. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why this soap set so purposely upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end, he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by a foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by the poison that tainted the contents of the plate. The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though personally, I have greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. Poisoning from soap ingestion. Ah, Sholmes, how I've missed you. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall the death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. Hey Squiggles, how are you doing? The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Though forced open now, at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Thanks for the resub, Squiggles, I appreciate it. Alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end, in tragic solitude. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. Like to blame this game, and thus by extension me, for your dream last night? What was your dream last night? Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You're disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? It's quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing.
How extraordinary.
I ate dry food before stream. Give me a sec. Dreamt you were in a pet store of sorts, and you attempted shoplifting 10 baby raccoons. And a lawyer came by and started interrogating everybody and taking pictures. No police were involved. Yeah, that's definitely an Ace Attorney dream. In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut.
And did it?
As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilt the contents of my stomach, yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it even if you did.
There's something that troubles me as well, actually.
Oh, what's that?
It's Mr. Natsume. I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow.
Nonsense. Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. Ugh. Sorry I keep having to start and stop, just...
I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective's deduction may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth.
Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. It's a very good way of putting it. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do.
Yes, we must pick out the keywords in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place.
In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why is this soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The fork reveals the answer. Well, you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something. Or about to eat something.
Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork, than to attempt it with chopsticks.
Of course, only half the bar of soap is left on the plate. That's a big-ass bar of soap.
But might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap.
Other piece of soap. Look, there's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamspeare must have really loved the stuff.
Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruhodo. Look closely at this soap. Do you see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table?
What the? How can that be?
I think that there are 2 halves of the same bar that broke apart.
Take that!
Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really, for no depths of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. That begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument, then.
And perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it.
Soap in London is that poisonous. I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all.
Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it?
Yes, a Western vessel for serving infusions of dried tea leaves.
It's a teacup, Mr. Naruhodo. As you well know, stop putting on airs. And it's empty.
Ah, so we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, there's significant evidence to suggest that he was drinking tea.
My thoughts exactly.
Take that!
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by the poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been a vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. Ah, the Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deductions so far.
Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamsphere was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that, but what troubles me
is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Sholmes suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems.
We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues.
Oh.
Take that!
Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in this room all along. In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's last supper, there was a guest present. Why did they use the banker's model there? Why is this Fairplay, Bruce Fairplay? This is Fairplay's model from the first game. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. Well, what are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now.
I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap.
The identity of the guest who was here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about.
Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but we can't ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, I suppose not. Time to look around again. First glance, it seems that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these 3 books initially.
I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read: The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Earrings, and A Meal for Gaborio?
Which are the books that Natsume was buying in the last case that we saw him in. Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before.
It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day.
What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them. That's right.
And now those 3 titles are here in the room of the victim.
Mr. Natsume claims to have never been here before. But what does this mean, or do you think?
I really don't know what to make of it.
Take that!
Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite so. It's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth. Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a second-hand bookshop.
It's just a coincidence.
In that case, you'll be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment.
No, never, not negotiable.
Can't bring your own copies here. It proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have bought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could only have brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. In short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in his room last night as a result of poisoning. That same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor... was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Then, Mr. Natsume, it appears you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? That's not your voice? Door! Key locked! Entry exit entirely impossible! So flustered he's being even stranger than normal. What? Think that's an alibi? Could've just made a copy. What? Live in the same building after all. Had plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. But... misery me! Sorry, sir. I'll give you a chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible airlock Sholmes. Really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? On now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Hey Taco, how are you doing? Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... you have to help me. Please, please, I'm innocent. I don't know what's up with Natsume's voice, but I'm having issues with Natsume's voice. Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken. So Seki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in a case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now.
Yes, that's right. Ah, and of course.
What?
Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamspear.
Ah, Mr. John Garadeb, yes.
I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Why was that sentence so hard?
Right. We must remember to go and talk to him later then.
Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was?
I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life.
Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul?
Sorry?
I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment.
There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there?
And what's this?
It's like part of an envelope, I think.
Yes, I think you might be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened.
Is that significant? Well, most people don't tear the end off the envelope, they open it.
Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps, when you look around the room. There's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there?
Ah, she's right.
And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual.
I agree. We better take this, just in case. Look at these extravagant, bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room with its grim, shady goings-on.
This one looks like a king's attire.
A king? Always dreamt of being a king.
Oh, I think you'd be more suited to be a feudal lord. A daimyo, or such like.
Daimyo? Chan Mage Topknot? Every Japanese man wishes he had a Chan Mage. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation on that, by the way. Like, don't worry, I'm fully aware that I'm butchering the pronunciation on that. Also, give me a second.
Oh, you'd look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword.
Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London I still don't know how to pronounce. Is it like Chan Mage? I don't know. And a sword?
There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and a bottle. And both of them are cracked.
Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter?
Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all.
Probably like Mage. Prosecutor Lord Van Zeeks?
Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste that he should donate them, and that he should donate some to the needy.
You can suggest it next time we meet. He is very wasteful with his wine glasses. He really likes throwing them into the sconce next to him.
As we've seen from the outside, this window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay.
Strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property? It's extraordinary.
It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax.
Is this guy just eccentric, or just a theater person? I think it's a bit of both. We had one interaction with William Shamspeare in the first Great Ace Attorney game during the case that this is a sequel to. Peter Gay got it. He and Natsume were having a gay date where they eat soap.
Oh,
What is it, Miss Susato?
if you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose.
Oh. Oh, yes. Looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamspeare who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room.
Ah, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it.
More soap. What, outside?
It's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap.
Did snow all last night. It would be cold. I feel that, like... Not last night, but the night before. Holy shit. It was so cold while I was streaming. I think it hit, like, -7 outside. Like, it's not, like, super uncommon for us to get negative temperatures in January and February where I'm at. But it's the first time that it's dipped that low. And so the roads have been absolutely horrible today, but it's one of those things where it's like, usually it starts to get, like, really hot in my room while I'm streaming if I have the door closed. But it stayed like a reasonable temperature the other night, and it caught me off guard. Did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps?
It's more bars of soap.
Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window?
I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that.
Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all.
Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at the soap. Or this soap.
Ah.
Do you see? In the middle there. There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but...
Some sort of fancy design, I suppose. In Great Britain.
It looks like the Hinomaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand.
Expensive? What's it doing in this ramshackle old room? Are we gonna find out that Shamspear was like smuggling drugs in bars of soap or some shit? Here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind.
Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas that as they use it with coins.
Ah, I see. Yes, now that you've pointed it out, I can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here?
That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for the lights and heating.
Actually, he was smuggling costumes. So if you're a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold?
Yes, or if you were just a scatterbrain with no change, because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank.
Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? Must be connected to a gas pipe on the wall.
Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas.
Now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they?
Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there.
Much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. I love that the camera only slides like 2 inches.
This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it?
Here's the audience set, though. Nightly Shakespeare performances.
Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office.
What?
Then you can practice your art every single day.
I'll think about it. You promised to don a beard and play the role of the judge.
Well, if that would help you achieve your goal.
Yes, I have to see. Honestly, that's super sweet. Susato's great. I like Susato a lot. We are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. Everything's a little bit, more straightened out up on the top there. Floor and stuff is still burnt behind that curtain, though, it looks like. Though I guess this is 1 day after the fire, so makes sense.
We're here because Mr. Garrideb's the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget.
You chaps, eh? I don't even remember what Garrideb's voice is. I didn't think he would be a recurring character. Yes, good morning, sir. For your cooperation in court yesterday. It's quite a trial. Much for Mr. Garrideb as anyone, really. Straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning.
I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garrideb.
Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that. Dead loss of an actor chap in the... that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? Yes, he's from the previous game, and he sucked in the previous game because he was an ass. His wife also sucked because she was also an ass. Must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. At 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. Went down and knocked on his door. No bally answer.
And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door?
Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? Man could have just overslept by half an hour.
That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning.
Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Great, do we get... Please tell me we get to send John Garrideb to jail to be with his wife. Please. It will be immensely cathartic.
Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of that door.
The victim's name is Mr. Shamspeare, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now.
And how would you describe him?
The word, destitute.
Destitute?
Well, let's face it. The only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. It's so hard to choose which category Soseki-san would fall into.
Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude.
That was my inner monologue. Stop reading my inner monologue, Susato. It's doing research as well. Research? To what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that.
Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated.
Seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there?
Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have much in common.
I keep having to pause because I keep getting something stuck in the back of my throat. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that.
Mr. Naruhodo, really, how rude.
After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, no, it must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. It was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. I have no clue what I did for Garrideb's voice. Mr. Garrideb noticed that there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. How would you do that? Didn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. After 8, before Shemspeare got back. The chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. I suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Everything all right, Miss Susato?
Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrideb, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly.
Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg.
Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean.
Ugh. Very good point. Can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking. It's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I? Everyone's just reading Ryunosuke's inner monologue.
Then, how did you know, Mr. Garrideb?
It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out.
Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main.
Yes, I understand that too. See if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly. But at the same time, lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? Dim? Why?
Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it?
Yes, of course. Because everything's connected to a single supply pipe.
Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable.
Good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless. Long worn out. Rarely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they go brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. Got it?
Oh, of course. Because when people come back home in the evening, before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps on fires.
Clever. point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. Watching the lights in here closely, I can work out just exactly what's going on in the whole house.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrideb. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh well, nothing to it, really. I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrideb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity.
This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it?
It's the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special.
I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinomaru design of the Japanese flag. I expect this is rather expensive soap.
Doesn't seem likely, given who it belongs to. It's probably not. It's probably something along the lines of the bar of soap is hollow and this is a plug. Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they?
Yes, whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging by the angle of the rip here, the person in question must have been right-handed.
Susato. I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never.
Hey, Mr. Garrideb. I know that I sent your wife to jail yesterday, but are you aware that I'm a lawyer? Mr. Garrideb, could I show you this? Been a couple days, as you can imagine. Right, I'm rather tired. Haven't really got the energy, the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time, then. I'm just presenting everything to double check. Just wanted to make absolutely sure. Okay, goodbye, Mr. Garrideb. I really appreciate the little hint text from Susato at the bottom.
One of the teacups that Mr. Shamsphere and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside.
Not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty.
That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamsphere's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from.
So Seki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson, back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. 5 minutes time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then.
Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low being back in a cell again so soon.
Sure. Should probably go and...
What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo?
Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? 'Tis a tale by an idiot. Sound and fury signifying nothing. Indeed, oh happy day. Walking Dead! Isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying, though?
I think... Yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5.
Shakespeare? So it was. That the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. The man had indeed been poisoned. It transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was.
Whatever do you think will happen now?
Question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life?
I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison as we deduced. But it was an accident, attempted suicide, or but was it an accident? Attempted suicide or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody.
I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? Looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings.
Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo?
Excuse me. Could we have a word? Ah. Just ran off.
I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it?
On the same road? I do too, but I don't remember. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again.
A good idea.
The exception of the top floor where Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb live, all the windows are bricked up.
Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows a property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows.
The tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could all be opened up again, surely.
Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done.
Yes, and that's a sad state of affairs.
Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room.
I suppose that's the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation.
It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that.
Am I going crazy? Did the bike... I could have sworn that when we saw the bike out of the corner of the camera, when the guy was here, the bike wasn't dented.
There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrideb residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain. At the moment, in fact.
The one seems very warped, though, especially the front wheel. That's to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think?
No, I'm afraid that might be a result of the rider's incompetence. And for the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider must have been similarly affected, or may have been similarly affected.
It's a good chance that Mr. Natsume has been practicing on this bicycle, I think.
Oh dear, I fear you may be right. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now?
Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me, is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes.
He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost.
But it's diabolic deductions. They're not of this world. They've left me. Ah, cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts.
Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too.
Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh?
The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again.
Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible.
Oh?
I'm stuck in this cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. Sorry to hear that. That selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy William. Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamsphere was never actually dead in the first place. Ah, yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. It'd be sad to think it was our last.
Oh.
Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamsphere, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell. But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday. Case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back.
It's hard to believe that it was only yesterday.
After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening, at past 9 it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamsphere. So you did go to the victim's room then?
As we feared.
I didn't do anything wrong. I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time. And what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got to chatting and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. Ties in with what Mr. Garrett said. The victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening, at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then.
And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate.
I'm sure.
Such a stimulating subject. Shakespeare. Debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea. No, never, not at all. Team Juliet won. That was me, and when I left his room. Flamboyant fellow was fighting fit, I swear it. Categorically. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned it's no place for me.
It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture.
There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then 1 week ago I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? Doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me.
The rent.
Obviously there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there.
Oh no.
He was only a young man, but at 1 in the morning he was found dead. No one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. Price to pay. And when I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered? But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room is, or that room's history really was.
Gosh, was it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened?
At first, it was just a feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to my place. Nightmare? Been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who've died in that room. Lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me. It really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night, too. The very same night that Mr. Shakespeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room.
You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible.
Yes, you're right. I know it. And that's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call a home.
I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history.
Ew, Susato-san knows how to make the man listen. I don't know why my reading skills are just, like, not here today. I feel like I'm tripping over words a lot. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. You mean Mr. Gerdub? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place.
Ah, perhaps that may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps in his tenants' movements.
I mean, because he's worried about their well-being. He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps?
Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything.
Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shamspear isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around and is able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me? Inspector Gregson. Help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, it's not your voice. I have some good news and some bad news. Oh. What you on first? Always, every time, the bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Right, well, in that case, the good news is... Alright, the good news it is. Huh. Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why did you ask me my preferences? You might have heard the victim, Mr. Shamspear, was just unconscious. He's come around now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. Still being treated by the doctors. Managed to get a written statement from him already.
Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume?
Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Sorry, no. That's not on the cards. His voice keeps changing. I don't know what to make. What?
Why ever not, Inspector?
Mr. Shamspear has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone?
Oh dear.
You don't mean... Sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. By sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. Wickedest caitiff, Soseki Natsume. No! Afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be one to make the necessary preparations. No! And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, he knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to I read that as break the curse that had blighted him. You know, okay, completely random thing. I kind of hope that this trial, like this case, doesn't take super, super long. Primarily because I'm really interested in getting back to, like, the current day stuff happening, rather than the flashback case stuff that's happening currently. Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. It's the gas leak. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat. All at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line. Good morning. Ah, good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this. Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole. Can't keep coming to court. Beginning to think he's right. Boy, it does seem as though he's cursed.
Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Mr. Natsume, good morning.
Yes, morning.
And so here we are again.
Yes, again. Judicial Assistant Miss Mikotoba Esquires. What's the bad news?
Oh dear. You heard, did you?
If you come in shouting at the top of your voice, people can't help hearing what you say.
Oh, I am sorry.
You've done nothing wrong, Miss Susato. Now, what is it?
Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Barrack von Zeeks.
Van Zeeks? Oh no. Oh no, no. So-called Reaper of the Bailey. Most legendary prosecutor in the land. Look at that man. I love this man. He's got like pompous vampire energy to him, and he's great. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Soseki-san and I relentlessly. Of course, by the skin of our teeth, we managed to pull through, but still.
Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter after all.
Yes, I know what you're thinking. Legend of the Reaper that says, nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zeeks is the prosecutor. Oh no.
That even if the person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end one way or another.
You've experienced it firsthand. The man we successfully defended met the most terrifying end after his acquittal. Right here in the Old Bailey. Do I have to put up with those ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? Cursed by evil spirits, and now by the Reaper. Pair of petrifying perils, potentially.
Well, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume.
Also, why does Natsume's handkerchief in his suit look like a piece of ham? Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes? I'm innocent. You have to believe me. You, more than anyone now. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. This promises to be a hard battle, I fear.
Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom.
Let's go.
Oh yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean.
It's probably for the best.
Oh,
If he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. That could be seen as weakness. If Lord Van Zieks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least that's my gut feeling.
Mr. Naruhodo.
You're right. Yes, you're so right. Oh, well said, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Well said. I swear on the sword at my side and on the spirit of Kazuma that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free, with honor.
Oh yes.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. I think that's about what my Van Zieks voice was like. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just my imagination. It's really there. Lord Van Zieks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason.
It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all.
Now he's back in the courtroom, though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper with his curious disdain for us Japanese is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Soseki-san's trial. Furthermore, now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury, been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? Really? What? Huh? I'm starting to think that the population of London consists of like 12 people, because these are 2 repeat jury members already. Absolutely. I had a feeling this larrikin wasn't innocent before.
I must say that I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right.
Oh, well, I rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think a ruthless look is fetching, actually.
I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick.
Agree more. You take home 5 bob tonight or missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us all the light here, and lead his flock to a righteous verdict.
The British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? It's almost like it's fucked up and flawed. It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt.
6 citizens of London, chosen at random. At least that's the idea. There's only one new face here. The prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. Okay, that makes slightly more sense, but still. Very well, let us commence the trial. Lord Van Zieks, opening statement, please. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime. Namely, that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witnesses to the stand. Taking that cloak off earlier, are we? The detective responsible for investigating the scene, and the accused himself. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division.
Soseki Natsume from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student, to study your language and culture.
Mr. Natsume?
Yes, my lord. Sir?
Quite sure I'm not mistaken. But you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. I remember it as if it were yesterday. The day before, in fact, my lord. But close enough.
Believe me, this is the last place I want to be.
Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garrett household, where the defendant has lodgings. In the ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamspeare, the defendant has already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamspeare collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by
Oh! Strike 9. I was like, wait a sec, what is that? It's strike 9. That's a type. That is an actual type of poison.
Poisoning by strike 9. It was found the following morning when the landlord suspected something was wrong. Broke down the door. This means I presume that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident. Correct, my lord. It was locked from inside, making entry to or exit from impossible. Well, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, lives to tell tale. He very nearly didn't. The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. I have a photographic print here that I took at the time to show how it looked. Yes, a chilling scene indeed. Man looks very much deceased.
What is that stain underneath the gas pump? Was there a gas leak? Was it... I guess they identified strike 9 poison, so it's a completely different thing, but...
That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what it was. Very well, I shall accept the photographic print as evidence for the court. Now then, Mr. Natsume.
Yes? Yes, yes?
As the defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture?
They're haunted. Haunted by evil spirits.
Good gracious, what's haunted?
My lodgings. There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. The woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. My neighbor was poisoned. And me. What about me? I've nearly been killed countless times.
Mr. Natsume, how?
Even on that fateful night it happened.
when I returned from Mr. Shamspeare's room. I lit my gas stove and climbed into bed, but before long, the stove went out, and somebody tried to kill me. Must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold, my runny nose would freeze. The point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Thank you, witness. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? One? Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamspears, regained consciousness after this ordeal. And he has named the true culprit. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in a cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. Accused? Good grief. Order! Order! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Soseki-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I brought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. I'll never touch tea again. Never. The public pump was frozen, you say?
That's not information we've heard before.
Thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call upon these witnesses now for a formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection. None whatsoever, my lord. Good. You will give your account of events on the night in question to the court now. Yes, my lord. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor, and I took some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? Strychnine takes some time to have an effect on the body. Well, don't kill over immediately after taking it. Victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. So I see. It all seems relatively straightforward.
Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims his tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though, the teacups have been examined for traces of the poison, haven't they?
Why didn't I think of that? Well, as it happens, no. We haven't been able to. I hear you correctly, Inspector. Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance. How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't it the first thing you should have done? My learned Nipponese friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea. Not that it was overlooked. Unable? Why? Simple enough. There's none left, not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed. With current scientific techniques, it's not possible to test for poison under such circumstances. I need a drop. That one drop does exist. There does actually have to exist, funnily enough. Lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than the tea passed the victim's lips on the night in question. I see, thank you. The matter is clear. That was a weird version of the judge voice, but okay. Cast your eyes over the jury, my learned friend. What? You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accused guilt. Your client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose, and your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. He's right. I can feel all 6 of the jurors looking daggers at me. But I can't let them beat me down. I won't. As for the defense, proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor, and I took some tea with me as a gift.
Hold it!
Were you and your neighbor good friends then?
No, we weren't friends. Not at all, not at all. Never, ever.
Simple no would have sufficed. Then, why did you decide to pay him a visit?
Mr. Shamspeare fancies himself as having great literary knowledge. As a fellow scholar of English literature, we find much to talk about together.
Come now, Nippon. No Nipponese can understand the finer points of English literature. And on the night in question, that was the topic of conversation as well, I presume.
It was the day of my last trial when I was acquitted. I just arrived back at my lodgings when I ran into Mr. Shamspeare outside on the street. That was around 6 o'clock. We exchanged 1 or 2 pleasantries, but it soon turned into a heated discussion. He was on his way out at the time, though, so I promised to visit his room that evening at 9 to continue our debate. But did I have ill intentions? Wow. No, not 1, not 2, not any, not at all. Never, ever.
A simple no would have sufficed, I feel.
Then tell the court what did happen when you visited the victim's room.
We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11.
Hold it!
A literary debate about Shakespeare's works, I think you said, didn't you? Shakespeare? A very worthy topic of conversation, I must say.
Oh yes, my lord. Romeo and Juliet. Who was stronger? It was a profoundly pleasurable parley.
Oh, and Juliet. Who was stronger? I know I'm gonna regret asking this, but how did the debate go?
Well, we both agreed that we would reach a conclusion more quickly with a reenactment. So we battled it out, in a Greco-Roman style, naturally.
What?
Mr. Shamspeare had all sorts of costumes in his room for such a contest.
So when you say reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume?
He as Romeo, I as Juliet, and after a vigorous, wild tussle, I, as Juliet, came out on top. A victory I'll cherish forever.
Dare not imagine the terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea, took it to the victim, correct?
I boiled the water in my room and made a pot to take with me. I'd heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see.
true. There's no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room.
I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is everyone looking at me with such suspicion? My tea was harmless. Of course it was.
Any basis for that statement, witness?
My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he?
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there? That's correct. Starting to lose my voice. That's correct. Anyone would think the fellow had never had a pot of tea before. Must have licked it dry. Which is a pity, because one drop is all we would have needed to analyze it for poison. And you say that you returned home to your room at 11 o'clock, Mr. Natsume?
Yes, definitely. By heaven and earth, I swear it.
Landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. Confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 that night. How was the landlord able to attest to this? It was the lamps, I believe. Lamps, Inspector? When tenants return to their rooms and start using the gas, the lamps in other parts of the house flicker.
Yes, Mr. Garrett seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenants. There's only one key to Mr. Shemspeare's room. I know that for certain. So he must have locked the door himself, from inside his room.
You must confirm that to be the case, yes?
So I'm right. My tea was harmless. Completely harmless. If you take poison, you die. Everyone knows that.
It's not that simple, I'm afraid.
What do you mean?
Strychnine takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it.
Hold it!
How long does it take for symptoms to appear then? According to the coroner I was speaking to at the yard, about 30 minutes after the poison's consumed. The victim suffers violent convulsions, cramping, stiffness, and eventually dies from asphyxiation. There's a 30-minute interval between when the poison is ingested and the onset of symptoms. Seem to be a lot of different types of poison in the world, that's for sure.
Oh dear. Death by poisoning again. It's always so awful.
30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left.
Can't deny that.
And it further degrades Saseki-san's alibi. Medical report from the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord. It spells it out, really. The accused is the only person who could have done it. Well, the court will add this report to the court record as evidence.
Oh yes, I see it here. Delayed onset of symptoms.
Great. Speaking of which, we actually have a decent chunk of evidence we haven't, like, properly looked at. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamspeare is drinking from, then. It's stained on the inside.
Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea.
Oh, really? Never noticed before.
You've never noticed?
Oh, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it?
dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture, and most of them are Japanese. This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking.
Yes, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. Ah, shit.
I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark.
Always gulp it down, too.
Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo? Would you mind saying that to me again?
Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold.
Clearly, I shall have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea.
Oh, that's bad. Unless this is supposed to be a lip mark here. I want to know what this is. William Shamspeare, 31. Cause of coma, ingestion of a small quantity of strike 9. Toxic effects present 30 minutes after ingestion. High likelihood of the substance having been mixed in the tea the victim was drinking, but no sample could be obtained for testing. Investigative conclusions. The poisoning incident occurred around 1:30 a.m. on the 21st of February. Assessed from the victim's pocket watch that appears to have broken when the man collapsed after the delayed onset of symptoms. No container for the poison was found at the scene. Huh? What? Oh.
What is it, Mr. Naruhodo?
It's a bar of soap. When we first found it, I could have sworn there was some sort of round disc in this depression or just here. A reddish one.
Yes, you're right. I remember it too. But now, the depression is completely empty.
Where could the disc have gone? Interesting. This is gonna sound really, like, weird and conjecture-y, but something tells me that, this, and the reason that the guy who was delivering the bar of soaps to the windowsill ran away as soon as we saw him, I think that these, the medallions in the bottoms of the bar of the soap, are actually, to put in the, gas meter as, like, a fake coin. That's my initial thought about that. Victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. Argument still stands, you say? That's what Mr. Natsume's been saying, isn't it? Heard them drink tea together that night? So if there was poison in it, victim wouldn't have been able to lock the door after the accused left later on.
Exactly. Me and my tea are innocent. Sweet and innocent, I tell you.
Afraid, sir, that doesn't follow. See, strike 9 is a slow-acting poison. In other words, it takes time for symptoms to appear. Left the room up to 30 minutes after the victim. See, as long as you did that, Mr. Shamspeare could have locked the door after you'd gone.
But no! We drank the tea straight away! The battle over whether Romeo and Juliet was stronger. That came after the tea.
Do you have any evidence to support that statement?
In my great homeland, the Empire of Japan, we have a saying. Drink tea while it's hot.
Sure, a proverb will sure. A proverb will satisfy the prosecution. Is he just always walking around with a newspaper full of fish and chips? Yep. It's constantly got fish and chips, and they're forever regenerating. Afraid there's no conclusive proof to support the defendant's assertion. On the contrary, there are sufficient grounds to infer his guilt in this matter.
No.
That's the extent of their testimony, is it?
If I could voice a personal opinion, Mr. Naruhodo.
Of course, go ahead.
Mr. Natsume is arguing for his innocence so adamantly and so persistently. Yet Inspector Gregson just brushes what he says aside. It's really quite infuriating.
I agree. So we need to find an inconsistency in what the inspector is saying, I think.
I'm afraid so. As things stand, the jurors are sure to find Mr. Natsume guilty.
As I see it, what we need to focus on is the poison in the tea. Let's listen carefully to this testimony again.
Yes.
You would ask where one acquires this power, but it's probably British exclusive. Okay, I'm interested in why we still have these. Because those are evidence from the other case from the first game. Oh, wait, wait, no. I feel like there's a part of me that feels like sending the teacups on this, but I might just be crazy. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. Oh, wait, no. It's at 11, but, poisoning incident occurred at around 1:30 a.m.
Objection!
Mr. Natsume, you say it was 11 p.m. when you left to return to your room, correct?
Yes.
And Inspector Gregson, can we rely on the information in the medical report unconditionally? Of course we can. No problem with that report, Sunshine. No need to update it. Actually, I think there's a very big problem. Because there's a chronological inconsistency between it and the defendant's testimony. Chrono what? What are you on about? According to this report, the victim must have consumed the poison at around 1:30 in the morning. And yet, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, left the victim's room at 11. Ugh. Yes, that's right. There's more than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to it 2.5 full hours after the defendant left? Ugh. I like that they did the same animation. Spence's argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zeeks? Probably in a snarky, condescending manner. Yep. Pray forgive the discourtesy if my mind has wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hallowed chalice this luncheon. How could it have happened, you ask? I do hate to shatter illusions, but my Nipponese friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea. A phantom? Is it so hard to imagine that the victim drank his tea after the accused had left? For example, at the time stated in the medical report. Yes, at around 1:30.
Objection!
Mr. Natsume brought the tea with him to drink together with his neighbor. And in Japan, there's a well-known saying, drink tea while it's hot.
Objection! And in my country, there's an even more apt saying. There's nothing more refreshing than cold tea.
The point is, if there was such a long gap, there may be other ways to explain how the victim came to be poisoned. Other possibilities.
What sort of possibilities, Counsel?
Well, for example, man could have had another visitor.
Another visitor? That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend. From someone who has nothing to substantiate it.
Or the victim could have taken the poison of his own volition.
Suggest this may have been a suicide, Counsel. Objection! Mr. Shamspeare has categorically denied suicide. The idea can and must be discounted.
Objection!
But he could be lying. There's something, like, I think it's supposed to be intimidating that he's not saying anything to, like, butt up against our argument, but it's also really funny because I'm also reading this as, like, him being like, shit, that's actually a good point. Why is that such a good point?
Is something wrong, Lord Van Zieks? I was listening to the sound of the carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray forgive the discourtesy.
Carriage? What carriage?
It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived.
Out, out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Who, sir, are you?
William Shamspeare, my lord. Alas, 'twas I undone by these bitter events. I am the victim. What's he doing here? I never watched any of Iron Chef.
The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With his testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed.
You're calling him as a witness?
Very well, counsel. I grant your request with interest. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself.
Happy am I, Shamspear, to regale thee with my tale of woe, my lord. But I still have my own tale to tell, my own tale of worse woe. I can regale the court with the tale of my perfect innocence, in perfect English.
That will do, Mr. Natsume. Let the court now hear from the victim.
Alright, so that's Mr. Shamspear. Who's that other man beside him, and why does he look like a Professor Layton character? Yes, I feel sure we caught a glimpse of that man before.
State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses.
A writer of words so sweet, they do scent the breeze. An inventor of ideas so profound, they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe, William Shakespeare. Were the great bard to be recalled to life anew, lo, what a magnificent man. Good fellows, I am he who ponders such a miracle, William Shamspear.
Oh, name's Meterman. Adrian B. Meterman. I work for the Atman Gas Company, East End branch office.
Ah, I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road.
Oh yes, she's right, it's him.
Oh, what's this? What's the man doing over there? It's like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. How is he trying to see, like, I meant to ask this before. How is he trying to see through a brick wall? Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah! Strikes a pose and then leaves. Yes, we spotted him outside Mr. Garadeb's house that morning. He's a gas company employee. What does he have to do with this case?
Well, Mr. William Shamspear, we're the victim in this miserable affair, correct?
Oh heaven, oh hell. Do you command me to remember? That sweet poison didst cross me, and cross mine innocent lips.
I subpoenaed him for the trial, with his doctor's permission, naturally. Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any room for doubt from the jurors' minds, I'm sure.
Behold, you have only to rearrange the letters of my name, to see that me's a seraph, an angel indeed. Thus, I be noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily honest of heart, as all heavenly angels be.
There isn't a less contrived meaning in your name. No, not at all.
The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid.
Actually taking the serif anagram idea seriously? It's because the average IQ of the jury in this game is very low. Okay, witness, for your illuminating introductions.
But my lord, what's the man next to Mr. Shamspear doing here? The gas man, I mean.
Me? Or what, me? Well now? Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. Recall, I presume, your earlier impertinence. When you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question. And moreover, that the victim is a compulsive liar.
What?
No, I didn't quite say that. This young chin-stroker is here to convert your wild claims. Or controvert. Conclusively. Good point. Have you considered my last name as Goodman? How could I possibly do a bad thing? Is that not so, Mr. Meterman? Hang on, no. I'm just here. I hereby call for your formal testimonies. We'll tell the court as lucidly as possible what happened on the night in question.
One may smile and be a villain. Yes, it doth pain me, but let the truth be spoken. The truth of that wintry night of my discontent.
Honestly, this guy looks like he would fit right in the Professor Layton Phoenix Wright crossover game. Especially since I'm pretty sure that game also had a character with a very similar shtick.
The snow lay about. My neighbor did cometh in the evening, bearing a gift of tea. But Mary, bitter was his drink, and when he left, I did fall prostrate on my table. 'Twas the tea alone that did pass my lips that late hour, not else.
Beside the bloke's window in the freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room. No one else visited his room but that short little round-back Eastern fella. Wait, what did you say? You were keeping an eye on Mr. Shamspeare's room all night. That's right. Of course, the bloke's window is all but blocked up, isn't it? A little gap in the bricks where you can see into the room. I spent the night trying to keep my teeth from chattering as I peered through that. Question is, sir, why? Well now, because it's on my list.
What a piece of work is a man. Wherefore wouldst thou not stare in wonderment?
What are you talking about?
This buzzing busybody hath not a part in this play. I pray thee, pay him no heed, make no more ado about his tedious words.
What'd you say about me?
Calm yourself. This court is concerned with what happened on the night in question. Nothing more.
Indeed, that is so.
And, as the testimony we have just heard clearly reveals, there was no one other than the accused present at the time who would have carried out this crime.
Well, I believe this may be the final testimony of the trial. Now, counsel, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. The snow lay about. My neighbor did cometh in the evening bearing a gift of tea.
Hold it!
To be clear, by neighbor you're referring to the defendant, Mr. Natsume. Oh, indeed, sire. Perchance thou wouldst that I call him the man from upstairs.
And at what time did the mustachioed Nipponese visit you in your room?
Our meeting was promised for the hour of 9, and lo did he come, to tender a gift of fragrant tea.
Details which are in accordance with the defendant's own testimony, yes?
And we were broiled in such literary debate as history hath not seen before.
By which I presume he means
Their discussion about who was the stronger, Romeo or Juliet.
I, Shakespeare, did play the part of young Romeo, whilst my neighbor played the fair Juliet. Each of us dressed as would our characters be, to bring weight upon our merry experiment. I read that as merry merriment. Cannot imagine the scene. Frailty, thy name is a woman, thy name is woman. I'm gonna trip over this guy's dialogue so much, like, canst thou imagine how dismayed I was? Yes, I had heard of the Eastern art of Jiu-Jitsu, but ne'er did I dream 'twould be a skill practiced by the comely maiden. Juliet beat Romeo up? This isn't helping our case. I believe the court has heard enough about your earth-shattering literary debate. Perhaps you could reiterate your statement about the tea that the accused brought to your room. My liege, I am thy servant. Gladly I would do thy bidding. But Mary, bitter was his drink, and when he left, I did fall prostrate on my table.
Hold it!
Let me stop you there. Mr. Natsume left your room at 11 o'clock, but it wasn't until after 2 that the poison made you collapse. That amounts to more than 3 hours of missing time. If the defendant had really put the poison in your tea, that 3-hour window of time is something you're going to have to explain. Gladly, 'tis an easy task. What? I did drink of the tea, not while my guest did tarry, but after he took leave of me. That's different from what you said before, buddy. Faith, 'twas stone cold, but at 1 hour post midnight, verily were my lips parched.
Objection!
That doesn't sound normal. Nay, 'tis quite ordinary, sire. After all, thou wast recall our fiery debate. Amid such argument, there'd be no time for fiery tea. Romeo and Juliet again. Who was stronger? Mr. Shakespeare, in summary, allow me to confirm. Did you not come here with the intention of naming your attacker? But of course, my liege. 'Twas the stooped lover of woods. What the fuck did I just say? 'Twas the stooped lover of words did attempt to shuffle me off this mortal coil. I'll know what that means. 'Twas the tea alone that did pass my lips at that late hour, not else.
Hold it!
So, you didn't have any kind of evening meal? Dinner? Supper? Fie on luxury, fie on gluttony. To eat thrice daily is but a waste of time. Sorry? I would that my belly were full, no more oft than the sun doth rise. Well, most heroic eating habits, I must say. Night and day do I fill my hours with learned study of the great bard and playwright. And is it that there doth not in my chamber be than the costumes of mine art? That would appear to be the case, as even a rodent was found starved to death in your room.
Now I think of it, it's not just food that was conspicuously missing from that room, is it? I don't recall seeing a single player script anywhere.
For I have devoured them all. You've eaten them? Every word be within my skull. Didst thou imagine otherwise? Right. That wasn't misleading at all. Now, could you turn around, do you think? Which brings us to the conclusion that the only way the poison could have passed the victim's lips is in the tea. outside the bloke's window in the freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room.
Hold it!
The windows of that house have all been filled in. You don't have to bring this up every time we mention the windows are filled in, Susato. I remembered this well enough from the last game. It was only brought up once in the last game, and I remembered it from the last game because it was an interesting fact.
A historical artifact of the now defunct window tax.
Hey, right there. All bricked up horribly. What happens? A little part of the brickwork at the bottom corner that's been opened up. Just looking through that gap.
Yes, there were a few bricks loose, weren't there?
For some strange reason, a couple of bars of soap lined up on the edge outside as well. I don't like going around poking my chin at other people's business, especially on freezing cold nights. Them's my orders. That's what I'll keep doing, as long as there's breath in my body. Also, I think the game had a typo earlier. Because Ryunosuke said that he was looking into Natsume's room when he was actually taking a peek into Shamspear's room. Because Natsume's room is the room the floor up from the other one. What's with all the theatricals today? Out of interest, Mr. Meterman. After the accused had left and returned to his own lodgings, did you see the victim leave the room at all? No, he never left. He was in that room the whole time as far as I'm concerned. And we can therefore discount the possibility of suicide. How can you be sure of that? The police carried out a thorough investigation of the scene and found no receptacle for the poison. Since we know the victim didn't leave his room, and hence didn't dispose of the poison container himself, it's clear that this was no attempted suicide. Only the culprit could have removed the receptacle. Ah yes. Lucidly explained, Counsel. Thank you. It really was. You can't argue with the logic. No one else visited his room but that short little round-back Eastern fella.
Hold it!
You say a short little round-back Eastern fella. So you can't be sure it was the defendant, then.
Objection!
How many other short, little, round-backed Nipponese with a mustache do you think there are in London? Of course, it's only a narrow gap and it was quite dark, so I didn't notice the mustache. Showed up at around 9, so I'm pretty sure of it myself. And when the person you saw arrived, did he and Mr. Shamspear drink tea together? Sorry, couldn't say. Why not? Because couldn't see into the room all that well, could I? I did see was the silhouette of that little round-back fella wearing a pretty dress. The pair of them started some kind of wrestling match. I tell you, I didn't know what to make of it.
I suppose. That was the Romeo and Juliet championship battle getting underway.
Mr. Meterman, allow me to confirm one final time. Apart from the accused, can you state with certainty that no one else visited the victim on the night in question? No question. Gasman's honor. Wait. Why didn't you just use the objection voice clip that this guy already has? He has an objection voice clip from the first game. My lord? Goodness me. Yes, Mr. Foreman? Kept my mouth shut and listened up to now. This has gone on long enough. With me? Yes. Are we to understand that you ladies and gentlemen of the jury are in agreement with one another? That you've reached a unanimous decision. Also, you're right, we have. Go with me?
Wait, no. The defense is in the middle of a cross-examination.
Honest, I was holding out a bit of hope for you, young man. Especially after I identified those few hours that followed the accused leaving the victim's home.
Yes, the 3 missing hours, as you put it.
But in the end, what difference do they make? None as far as I can see.
And since that's now apparent, there's really no reason to delay our decision any longer.
I was saying before, if I don't take 5 bob home with me tonight, the missus will blow her top. What's that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. Well... The court be appraised of your decisions. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings to the defendant's culpability.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
That's really funny. The fancy lady's voice, I'm 90% sure is a reused voice clip from the first Great Ace Attorney game. All of you? Well, it would appear that the jury is indeed unanimous. Also, I don't know how I never noticed it before, but I never noticed before that Van Zeek's bottle of wine has a Reaper on it with 2 sides. So, this time at least, it seems justice will be done. All's well that ends well, as they say. This calls for a toast, I feel. To the guilty being punished.
Get up, Mr. Naruhodo, please. The trial isn't over yet.
What do you mean, Miss Susato? Have you really forgotten about the summation examination?
What about the information I found in this encyclopedia of British law I have? That obscure right belongs to the defense in these situations. Remember?
Summation examination. Yes, that's right. We don't have a jury in Japanese courts, of course. But here in a British court of law, if we can reverse the decisions of a majority of the jurors, we can force the trial to continue. This trial can't end now. Whatever it takes, I just can't let that happen. The defense moves to invoke its right to a summation examination, my lord. Why am I not surprised at my learned Nipponese friend's ability to admit defeat? You chose to cling desperately to some archaic rule you barely comprehend, instead of accepting the truth. Literally no other defense counselor in recent times has exercised the right to a summation examination. Because they all know that once the jury's mind is set, it cannot be altered. Nevertheless, right remains and it must be upheld. The defense counsel's request is granted. This court will proceed with a summation examination, as outlined in the Encyclopedia of British Law.
Thank you, my lord.
Are you and your fellows prepared, Mr. Foreman? Leave me, my lord. Know all about this young lad's tenacity. We're ready for it. Very well. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby call upon each of you to state the grounds upon which you find the defendant guilty of the crime for which he stands accused. He may not be well off, but he's a noble man and straight up. There's no reason to doubt the man.
Well, I do declare the good gentleman has no reason to lie. In fact, I think he's rather splendid.
Let's look at the accused by comparison. He's Japanese, stoops all the while, and he has a mustache. Very fishy.
There's no evidence to suggest the gangling actor is a fraudsman. For now, at least.
I really don't care, just need this trial to end quickly. 3 hours of missing time is nothing when you reach my age, you know? Nothing at all. I knew it. Every single one of them seems completely convinced.
It would seem that all of the jurors have come to the conclusion that Mr. Shamspeare is a fine, upstanding, and honest citizen.
If you ask me, they've all been bewitched by his strange theatrical movements.
And sadly, nothing Mr. Natsume has said appears to have registered at all.
Well, here goes. Let's not forget. Pleaded with the jury on Soseki-san's behalf before. It worked, so you never know.
Before we begin, it might be an idea for me to remind you exactly how a summation examination works, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh,
Well, you're still very new to British law, after all.
that's true, I suppose. Soseki-san's fate is entirely in my hands now, too. There's always a chance I might have forgotten some crucial detail. Perhaps I should hear Susato-san out. I wonder, should I let her talk me through it again or not? No need, I actually remember how this works. Thank you for the kind offer, Miss Susato. But I've been through plenty of these summation examinations already now. I think it's important that we don't delay the start any longer than necessary.
Of course, I understand, and I'm quite sure you're right. If you're confused by anything at any point, you can turn to me for advice whenever you like. I'll be here for you.
Key to this is really listening carefully to each juror's statement. Finding two that are contradictory and pitting the corresponding jurors against each other. Thank you for the but thou must with the tutorial text where it's like, hey, do you want to know how this works? No? Here's how this works. Without further ado, please, counsel, proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Gosh, I love the summation examination music. It's so good. He may not be well off, but he's a noble man and straight up. No reason to doubt the man.
Hold it!
Well, there are plenty of people in London who seem noble but poor. Couldn't some of them also be liars? No doubt about it. That shaky client of yours, for example. Absolutely not. Mr. Natsume is no liar. The point is, the only thing that passed the victim's lips that night was that Japanese man's tea. Take the gas man's testimony into account. As well, the truth couldn't be any clearer. Well, it's alarmingly logical. Let me be frank here. I'm a gentleman. Gentleman's values. It turns out that old Shakespearean chum is a rotten liar after all. Gladly changed my decision about the defendant. I'm sure my fellow gentlemen of the jury will do the same. Not right? Well, yes, perhaps. Though I don't see it happening. Eh? What's that? Out of the gent on the end here, you know? You'll have to speak up. I really don't care about all this nonsense. Just need the trial to be over. How many gentlemen do we actually have on the jury, then? Alright, sir. I may hold you to that. Don't forget what you said. Huh. Alright, if you can show me the victim's a liar, I'll reconsider my position.
Well, I do declare the good gentleman has no reason to lie. In fact, I think he's rather splendid.
Hold it!
Are you saying that you believe the man to be trustworthy because he's rather splendid?
No, that's not what I said. The point is, the man is the victim here. What reason would he have to lie? And yes, he is rather splendid.
So you say, yet again.
Meanwhile, the man who stands accused behaves so suspiciously, it's exhausting to look at him. I'm afraid he's not splendid at all.
Splendid logic there, madam. Thank you so much. Just look at the accused by comparison. He's Japanese, stoops all the while, and has a mustache. Very fishy.
Hold it!
No, no, no. Not one of those things is a reason to find the man guilty. But he is fishy. There's no point in dancing around the fact. He's Japanese, he has a mustache, and he stoops. You see, you arrive at the conclusion in just 3 steps. 3 steps, like a waltz, in fact. You know, the more I think about it, the more this trial seems like a dance. You seem to be several steps ahead of yourself, though. On the wrong foot. No, there's nothing but circumstantial evidence here. There's no actual proof of the defendant's guilt. But the victim's version of events is backed up by what the big-chinned man next to him says, isn't it? 1, he saw the Japanese man there. 2, he saw no one else. And 3, he saw the Japanese man there. Oh, that's another 3 steps. All this really does seem more and more like a waltz, doesn't it? Right. The prosecution will waltz its way to victory if I let you speak much more.
There's no evidence to suggest the gangling actor is a fraudsman. For now, at least.
Hold it!
Fraudsman? What do you mean by that, madame?
It really is a most tiresome problem for the company. Most irritating. We can be absolutely certain that a customer is stealing from us, but without hard evidence, we can't even threaten to take action for fear of being sued.
I'm sorry, you lost me a little there. Who are you?
I'm the wife of Augustus
Altamont.
Altamont, owner of the Altamont Gas Company.
Gracious. Altamont Gas, you say?
Gas is the future of energy in this company and around the globe, but proper handling is essential. As I'm sure our employee from the East End branch office would be the first to agree.
Absolutely, Lady Quimby. Gotta be used properly. Altamont Gas, the best in the world, of course.
I think we may have solved the mystery of the bow from earlier, Mr. Naruhodo.
Right. He bowed in deference to his employer's wife, did he? So, would I be right in assuming that the reason Mr. Meterman was watching what Mr. Shamspear was up to in his room?
I'm afraid that there's no end to the lengths the population of the East End will go in order to steal our gas. And so I really have no choice when the company identifies somebody as a possible fraudsman, but to dispatch a worker to watch the suspect day and night. We're very thorough in our investigations.
So you mean Mr. Shamspear is...
I wouldn't come out and say it in public, but you can finish that sentence with a grubby little gas thief.
You have noticed the public gallery in here, have you?
The eye of a man hath not heard. The ear of a man hath not seen. Faith, wouldst thou wound me with thy words, were I to let them penetrate my skin? But seraphs hear not insults, only choirs of angels in song. We may not have evidence yet, but my workers won't stop buzzing around you until they find it. And when they do...
Buzzing around, they both have a bee motif. Shit.
And when they do, you'll find yourself blasted back to your angelic heights in an Altamont gas explosion.
So Mr. Shamspear has been stealing gas. I wonder, juror number 4, if you wouldn't mind adding that information to your statement.
My pleasure. It was that bit about ripping the thief apart you enjoyed.
A little before the part about abject violence, if it's not too much trouble. That's a good line.
Yes, of course.
This could be it. This could shift the balance.
The victim puts on a fine performance, but in reality, he's a common thief of my company's gas.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious. To whose statements do you refer, counsel? Juror number 1. You're yelling about, lad. I presume you've heard juror number 4's statement, made by the wife of the owner of Altamont Gas. Well, yes. The victim, who you claim to be a noble, straight-up man, in fact, turns out to be a common thief. Lady says, no evidence, is there? I both heard them say as much.
It's true. We don't have evidence as such, just yet. But the claims aren't baseless, you know.
What?
You heard me. Seeing as his operation has already been compromised, I would suggest that the court hears testimony from our East End branch office employee over there.
I'll do whatever you say, my lady. Gasman's honor. Juror number 1. You say you're a man of your word. If I could show that Mr. Shamspear was the liar, you assured me that you would reconsider your decision about the defendant's guilt. Yes, I did say that. As a man of honor, I'll hold to it. I'm sure the other gentlemen of the jury will.
Me? Oh, well, yes. Now that we've found out the man's a liar, perhaps we ought to consider the matter further.
Well, if I'm perfectly honest, I haven't heard half of what you've all been saying. This means you'll recap a few points, then that would suit me down to the ground. Oh no, I'm not having any part of this. I want this trial to be over and done with.
In that case, I shall change my leaning.
Oh, Mr. William Shamspear? That is your real name? Jury demand to know exactly what kind of a man you really are. That's 4 jurors. 4 not guilty.
Yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Victory!
Meanwhile, Van Zeeks is over here like, come on, dude. Like, you've done this in every single trial we've had against each other. Please. Order, order! Well, this is quite extraordinary, I must say. As a result of the defense's summation examination, the jury's leaning has changed. Now only 2 jurors say guilty, whilst 4 say not guilty. Therefore, declare this court to be in a state of disaccord, and order the trial to continue. Let me guess, you're gonna throw it into the sconce behind you. Yep. You have spoilt the bouquet, Mr. Shamspear. The ladies and gentlemen of the jury now find they are unable to trust you, the victim.
But you gods will give us some faults to make us men. So God mend me, I do swear. This gasman speaketh that which concerns him most. Naught but gas, naught but thin air. Aye, it burneth bright a while, but it hath no substance, and it doth reek foul.
Oi, what did you say? Take it, Mr. Shamspear. You deny the allegations of gas thievery?
Most heartily, my lord. Hast thou forgot? I am as a seraph, an angel. Noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily, honest of heart.
Flowery mouth, pompous beanpole? It's because I haven't got the evidence yet.
Mr. Shamspear, if in fact you are not noble of mind, sweet of nature, or honest of heart, if you are a liar, then your testimony should have no sway in this courtroom.
I considered opinion. At the present time, no other possible culprit of this crime has been identified. All testimony heard by the court thus far heavily implicates the defendant. In short, it would not be unreasonable at this stage for me to rule on the case,
But you're not allowed to because the jury said no. Oh no.
in light of the fact that the jury has expressed concern about the fidelity of this witness, I believe it would be inappropriate for this court not to pursue the point further.
Objection!
I assure you, my lord, that would be a waste of the court's time. The gas and this case are unrelated.
Juror number 4.
Yes.
Didn't you say before that although you had no hard evidence to prove this man has been stealing gas, you have strong grounds for suspecting him?
That's right. We do. Don't we, worker?
Absolutely, Lady Quinby.
I just realized her name is Quinby, like Queen Bee.
Gasman's honor. Well then, we'll hear your testimony now. You'll tell the court precisely why you believe the victim, Mr. William Shamspear, has been stealing gas. Yes, my lord, it'll be my pleasure. The Altamont gas name.
If I may, my lord.
Go ahead, madam.
This worker's testimony may have a significant bearing on the good name of my husband's company. Therefore, I should like to take the stand alongside him in a supervisory role, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh yeah, sweet as honey. Yeah. Very well. An exception, I shall honor your request, despite the fact that this is
Literally doctoring testimony.
Thank you, my lord.
wait till the boss gives you an earful. Oh, it's gonna sting, you mark my words. Both testify before the court on the subject of the illegal consumption of the Altamont Gas Company's fuel.
Yes. Is that clear, my good man?
Here's Altamont Gas, my lady. The clearest in the world.
Do you think the gas has gone to his head, Miss Susato?
I think the man is just a very dedicated employee, Mr. Naruhodo.
Proud to be the company's East End branch investigator and meter money collection agent. Altamont gas meters accept through penny bits. Each coin giving customers about 2 hours of gorgeous gas.
And yet, the meter in Mr. Shamspear's room didn't have a single coin in it. The meter doesn't appear to have been tampered with, though, and the collection agent has the only key.
Now he's using all the flaming gas he wants without paying a penny. That's not even what is.
Pray forgive the discourtesy. The irrelevance of this testimony caused me to turn to my hallowed chalice.
I mean by that remark, Lord Zeeks?
Did the mustachioed Nipponese poison the gangling excuse for an actor, or didn't he? That is all that should concern this court. Yet now we must listen to this
Abhorrence. Clearly what separates the vast British Empire and your Eastern Island nation is more than geographical distance. But this could turn out to be crucial testimony. The cross-examination must go ahead. Do what he will.
Lord Van Zeeks appears to be in a violent mood.
Yes, he does. Attempted poisoning, and an incidence of gas theft with no supporting evidence. It's true that they would appear completely unrelated at first glance. I wonder, the truth tends to be buried in the most unusual places. And the first step to uncovering it will be to establish just who and what this man really is. Proud to be the company's East End branch investigator and meter money collection agent.
Hold it!
So does that mean you enter people's houses in order to empty their gas meters? That I do. I have to try to catch people when they're in. I ask permission to come inside and do my business. Does that mean you've been into Mr. Natsume's room before as well? Or as well as that of Mr. Shamspear? Well now, interesting you should bring that up. Couldn't believe how little money was in his meter. I mean, how the pair of them survive in the winter is beyond me. It really is.
Knowing Mr. Natsume, he probably spends all his gas money on books.
And when he's finished reading them, he probably burns them for warmth. Kindly reiterate your statement about the gas meters themselves, Mr. Meterman. Not much to say really, but as you wish. I also want gas meters except throw penny bits. Each coin giving customers about 2 hours of gorgeous gas.
Hold it!
So all London houses that have a gas supply are fitted with these gas meters, are they?
They're the latest model, with the height of technology, developed by our company, Altamont Gas. And anyone who uses our gas will have one of these meters in their property, yes.
So if a 3-pence coin gives 2 hours of gas, most people would use about 3 coins in a night? More than that, usually. Have both gas lights and gas stove, that is. Thinking about it, Soseki-san doesn't have a fireplace in that room of his, does he?
And some people still choose to use candles, of course, and only have gas for heating. Ah, yes, I do remember seeing candles in Mr. Natsume's room, actually.
How does the money in the meter get back to you at the gas company? Every 3 days, gasmen like me visit properties on the gas supply and empty the meters of coins.
I must say, the design and manufacture of the new meter cost the company an awful lot of money. But happily, it did put a stop to people not paying their dues. For the most part.
Because they have to pay in advance, you mean?
Yes, exactly right. And yet, the meter in Mr. Shamspear's room didn't have a single coin in it.
Oh, whoops. Her voice is just getting higher and higher, I'm realizing.
Hold it!
Out of interest, how long has this been going on? Weeks and weeks. Engine gas office for ages. Examine the meter in Mr. Shamspear's room, I take it.
Naturally. We took it off the wall and went over it with a fine-tooth comb.
Nothing suspicious at all, I presume.
No, I'm afraid we didn't. Which is exactly why I demanded a new type of meter to be produced. One with an indestructible lock. The Shamspear Special.
Sounds like it would have cost an awful lot of 3-penny pieces.
But even after all that, the rascal's meter was still empty.
Don't forget the humiliation. I opened the money box and found it bare. What? I said? You what? Look on his face, that smarmy smile of his. Pulled the meter straight off the wall and took it back to the office. You know what? Nothing. Not a trace of it being jimmied open anywhere. Not a single sign. What's happening to my salary as a result? My 3 shillings a day, that's what. Life-threatening situation. In a number of ways. Incidentally, what became of that meter? What became of it? Still got it. Oh? Right here. No wonder they call you Meter Man. It would be prudent for the court to sequester this item while the trial is ongoing. Definitely. So are they? I think that these are coins made out of plastic, or like something similar, and they're melting out of the gas thing. It's a very sturdy-looking padlock, isn't it?
And the money box is sealed with beeswax, too.
So if Mr. Sholmes were to get up to any mischief, he'd be found out immediately.
Mr. Naruhodo, mischief of that kind is not the sort of thing that Mr. Sholmes would...
No, you didn't finish that sentence, don't you?
Well, anyway. It's understandable that the gas company would want to safeguard money that's rightfully theirs.
It does feel a little over the top, perhaps, doesn't it? Oh, what's...
Have you spotted something, Mr. Naruhodo?
Just here, there's a little hole. See?
Goodness, you're right. I wouldn't have noticed.
It's not a very neat hole, is it? Not professionally made, I'd say.
So, you think it might have been opened up by Mr. Shamspear?
Possibly. It seems the people at Altamont Gas have missed it. Or must have missed it.
Well, it certainly seems to go all the way through to the inside.
Yes, but there's no way a coin could fit through there.
That's true, but even so, it seems more than a little suspicious.
Definitely. Although at first glance, there doesn't appear to be anything unusual about it. Let's move this along, shall we? Continue with your testimony. Though I would say it has as much value as the contents of that meter. Ugh.
The meter doesn't appear to have been tampered with. Though, and the collection agent has the only key.
Her voice has gone through like 5 iterations at this point.
Objection!
Lady Altamont, I'm afraid to say that this meter clearly does show signs of having been tampered with.
What?
Get away! Over and over that thing! I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with it. In that case, what do you have to say about the small hole that's been made at the base of the coin box? Oh, what?
You're right. You're quite right. There's a little hole there. The meters aren't supposed to have that. None of the others do.
In other words, we can assume that Mr. Shamspear secretly opened up this hole himself.
Yes, I wouldn't be at all surprised. But why?
Why? It's tiny. Get a farthing through that. Lady Altamont, I wonder if you could give the court some more details about your meter design.
What sort of details?
Like, I keep like... What I'd specifically like to know is how it differentiates coins. How does the meter tell the difference between different coins?
What do you mean?
Well, for example, if someone were to put in a 1 penny coin, that wouldn't work presumably, would it?
No, of course not.
So, well, how does the meter know that the coin it's been fed is a through penny bit?
I see what you're getting at now. The meter tells coins apart by their shape and size, which includes their thickness. A through penny bit is about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, you see. Other coins just won't fit.
I see. It's clearly been very well thought out. Witness will amend her formal testimony with that information in case it's pertinent. Oh, wait. So, the hole in the bottom, if these are, like, coins that are plastic and are melting out, that explains what this big fuck-off spot here is. It's a whole bunch of liquid that's dripped out from the gas meter because of the, fake coins.
As you wish, my lord. The meter is designed for coins the exact diameter and thickness of a thorough penny bit. Nothing else will fit.
Oh, look at this bar of soap. There's a circular depression. Oh, whoops. I skipped.
Or 3/4 of an inch. Do you think?
Did find the soap at the scene, didn't we?
Yes. Yes, there were 2 bars on that little ledge just outside the window. So we took this one. But I'm sure that when we first found it, there was some sort of reddish medallion in the middle. There, I remember it clearly.
Yes, but there's no sign of it now. Where could it have gone?
Objection!
Let me just confirm something here. If the diameter and thickness were to be correct, the meter would accept any object if it were as if it were a thorough penny bit. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, by something of a coincidence, while we were investigating in Mr. Shamspeare's room, we found a particular item that matches the dimensions perfectly.
And something the same size as a thorough penny bit. What was it?
The item in question is this. Been inhaling gas? That's a bar of soap.
It certainly looks nothing like a thorough penny bit, I must say.
Looks like I'm gonna have to point out exactly what I mean here. So important about the soap. It's this part here. It's literally the one thing on the soap to point out. Why do I have to point this out?
Got it!
I have to turn over the soap to see what I mean.
Are you referring to that round depression in the middle of the soap there?
That's right. A depression that's approximately 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Or in other words, almost exactly the same size as a through penny bit. Away! No one here present have in their possession a thorough penny bit. Through penny bit. I'm reading that wrong. And now, hand over your coins, ladies and gentlemen.
It sounds rather like a highway robbery, doesn't it?
As to a kind member of the public in the gallery, I have here a through penny bit. Now to see if it fits. My word, it couldn't be more snug. Yes, as I suspected. This, without a doubt, is a vital clue to explain how the Altamont Gas Company is being defrauded.
Well, I don't believe it.
I feel like I'm going absolutely insane. The guy's scarf is supposed to be the bee wings. I feel like I'm losing my mind at these two. So, your assertion amounts to what? That some inferior bar of soap has a tentative connection to the theft of gas. Yes. The depression in the soap was clearly made by a thorough penny bit. Thorough penny. I must concur, at least, that pushing a coin with some force into a poor quality bar of soap such as this, a remarkably simple way of replicating the coin's shape. Use, well, some melted wax or something to pour into the mold. Make fake coins in no time. This brings all the pieces of the puzzle together. This is the method Mr. Shamspear has been using to steal the gas. That's the missing link. And now, if I follow the chain of thought, it's going to bring me to a new explanation for what happened that nobody's considered yet.
But this is all nonsense. If the man had been making fake coins, my worker here would have found them when he emptied the meter.
Quite true, Lady Altamont. In the absence of some black magic that could make them disappear. I see. That's what we're dealing with, isn't it? It's one form of black magic that could cause the fake coins to disappear into thin air. Yes. Exactly. And the meter here gives it away.
What on earth?
There are remnants of the magical method used visible on the gas meter taken from the victim's room. What is your assertion, counsel? The defense will identify the remnants for the court at once. Where on the meter can the remnants of the method used to make the fake coins disappear be seen?
Got it!
We found this bar of soap at the scene of the crime, just outside the victim's window. Hey Nautilus, how are you doing? Outside? Yes, outside. Where you yourself, Mr. Meterman, were loitering. Freezing winter air. Finally catching it without sleeping though. You're tired. Could do with some food. That's fair. Yes, outside where you yourself, Mr. Meterman, were loitering in the freezing winter air. That's where we found this soap. I get it. That's right. The answer, of course, is ice. You say ice? Mr. Shamspear has been leaving soaps like this outside his window each evening, filled with water. After a night outside in the bitter cold, the water is completely frozen solid the next morning. Then, he takes his fake coins of ice and feeds them into the gas meter, giving him light and warmth in spades. As his room becomes very comfortably warm, the ice now inside the meter's coin box melts, turning back into water and draining harmlessly away through the small hole made in the underside of the meter. That's how, without leaving any evidence of his wrongdoing, this man has been stealing Altamont gas.
Just like that. And so simply. Is he trying to make us look like idiots? He's been fooling us all with some bars of soap and water.
That's right, madam.
I don't believe it. That can't be true. Do you have any idea how much money we spent to develop that new meter? And now you have the audacity to suggest that a bit of soap and some water can render it totally useless.
Fairly sure I didn't design it.
Evidence.
Sorry?
I want evidence. If you're going to stand there and tell me our meters are rubbish, I want to see proof. And she's very good at enforcing accountability, isn't she?
Very well, Lady Altamont. If you you'd like evidence, I'll provide it.
What? Mr. Naruhodo, are you saying... Do you actually have evidence to support this theory?
Did notice a trace of something that bothered me a little at the time. I have a feeling that this theory we've come up with now could explain it. A piece of evidence that substantiates the theory about how Mr. Shamspear has been stealing gas is this picture, because it's got a picture with a whole bunch of water underneath it. This is a photograph of the scene at the point when the victim was discovered, taken by Inspector Gregson. And it clearly shows the remnants of the crime carried out by Mr. Shamspear. What remnants? Here you can see the gas meter on the wall in Mr. Shamspear's room. Now, look closely at the floorboards directly underneath the meter.
What is that? Some kind of grubby stain?
Almost certainly. It's a water stain, resulting from the liquid that drained out of the hole made in the meter. One coin gives around 2 hours of gas usage, and the occupant was heating his room in all his waking hours. We can imagine he would have used around 10 of his fake coins each day. Melting ice inside the meter's coin box would have been dripping out almost constantly, leaving a stain on the floor.
This is awful.
And there's further evidence too. Mr. Shamspear is slumped over on his table, apparently having consumed Strike 9. And right there next to him is a bar of soap, broken in half.
You're right.
Hear to me then, Counsel. The man was eating the soap, was he? Pardon me for disagreeing with your lordship, but... certainly not.
He didn't beat about the bush there, did he?
In truth, Mr. Shamspear was found with a fork in his hand. Bill of soap was sounding increasingly... Need to say, you didn't have a fork to... Yes. To extract a frozen coin from the bar of soap.
But the bar broke in half. So perhaps it didn't go very well.
Gracious. The screen shake. Lord Van Zeeks? I was throwing my hand up in despair, and happened to catch my hallowed bottle in the way. Pray forgive my Aldroy mistake. Please forgive my maulding. What's the meaning of this, Counsel? Allow me to pose my learned friend a question. What exactly did you establish with your most recent cross-examination? Well...
That Mr. William Shamspear is a liar and a thief. In other words, that his testimony is unreliable.
That's it. That's exactly it. Very well. Let us assume the man is a liar. Now allow me to pose another question. What possible difference does that make? Well, we know that suicide can be discounted. Scotland Yard's investigation revealed no sign of another vessel that contained poison. On the night in question, there were no visitors to the room except the accused. Young Gasman's testimony, which we have no reason to doubt, has confirmed that. Furthermore, the only possible way the poison could have entered the victim's body is via the tea. The court has seen no evidence whatsoever that suggests otherwise. even if William Shamspeare's the liar you claim him to be. These facts have been objectively established. There's no escaping it. Therefore, in light of these facts, the prosecution calls for immediate adjudication. You...
What?
Order! Order! Well, counsel, how does the defense respond?
Mr. Naruhodo.
What was the point of that last cross-examination? Actually get us anywhere? Or did it make no difference at all, like Lord Van Zeeks is saying? No, this isn't over. The defense will not rest. What? Counsel, you've successfully explained everything. Identified and substantiated the unscrupulous method employed by Mr. Shamspeare to consume gas. What more is there to discuss? Lord Van Zeeks just highlighted 3 facts in order to make his point. But contrary to what he would have the court believe, not all of them have been objectively established at all. What are you trying to say, my Nipponese friend? At least one of those so-called facts is an assumption, made due to lack of evidence. But the situation has changed now, following the cross-examination of the latest witness to take the stand. Don't be absurd. What is this nonsense? Yes, you bring everything we've learned so far together and consider it as a whole, it's clear. There's a question that we now need to reconsider, namely, I actually don't know. What if it was somebody else entirely who poisoned the victim? If that's your assertion, by all means, tell us who it was. Yes, well... Well, who is this mysterious third party, counsel? Hey, I think it's a little too soon to be naming names, my lord. The contrary. It's a little too late. Much like your defense. Shown so much. The situation has changed, I'm sure of it. Mr. Shamspeare is trying to make more ice coins on the night in question. I really feel like that's a clue here. That it's pointing us towards something else. What if the victim did in fact have another visitor besides Mr. Natsume? That's your assertion. By all means, tell us who it was. Did I just click the same thing again? I did. I just clicked the same thing again. I'm dumb. We've all been led to believe that the Strike 9 poison that affected Mr. Shamspeare was in the tea brought to him by Mr. Natsume, but that's conjecture at best.
Objection!
The victim has testified that nothing else passed his lips that night. There's no other possibility. Since there was no trace of the tea left at the scene, it couldn't be tested for traces of the poison.
Objection!
As I said, the situation has changed. Because in fact, some of Mr. Natsume's tea was left at the scene. and a particular piece of evidence proves it.
Objection!
Ludicrous claim. Scotland Yard detectives investigated the scene exhaustively. What evidence are you suggesting they missed? This has made a bold claim indeed. Very well, counsel, present your proof. What evidence from the scene of the crime can tell us the nature of the defendant's tea? That's why the coin was orange, is because it was made with tea instead of water.
Take that!
Good gracious. The soap again? The same bar the victim used to fashion the coins of ice. Yes, that's right, my lord. It's just come back to me. Something about when we first found this bar of soap at the scene yesterday.
It's more bars of soap.
Soap? What bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I'm quite certain that when we originally stumbled upon the bars of soap, there was actually a frozen coin in each bar. So you discovered the gas thief's coin factory. Fascinating. In a way, yes, but there's more. The coins we found in the soap at the time weren't normal ice. There was something strange about them, you mean? Exactly. Something very obviously strange. They were red. The ice was red. No. You mean... That's right. It's obvious to me now. The fake coins in the soap were made from frozen tea. What? I would remind the court of a statement made by Mr. Natsume earlier in this trial. That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought a bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again. Never. Ah, yes, I believe there had been a snowfall that day. It was particularly cold. But though on such occasions, the poorly constructed water mains in the East End are prone to freezing. So on the night in question, Mr. Shamspeare, having no running water to use, was forced to use the tea brought by Mr. Natsume in order to make his fake coins. My word. There were 2 bars of soap in the window ledge when my judicial assistant and I investigated the scene.
That's right, and we only borrowed one of them.
Which means that even as we speak, some of the defendant's tea is still present at the scene of the crime. Frozen solid in a bar of soap. Outside Mr. Shamspeare's window. Extraordinary. Earlier today, Inspector Gregson informed the court that if even 1 drop of the tea remained, Scotland Yard would be able to analyze it for poison. As such, we are now in position to prove or disprove that it was, or what was until now been mere conjecture, by finding out for sure whether or not Mr. Natsume's tea actually contained Strike 9 at all. Ugh, you smug Nipponese. My lord, we cannot do the defendant the injustice of passing judgment now. The police should be dispatched to recover the remaining bar of soap from the scene at once. And the defense requests a thorough analysis of the frozen tea embedded in it, to determine whether or not it contains any poison. Bailiff, instruct the police to attend to the scene at once. Yes, my lord, understood. Seem we have no choice but to suspend these proceedings for the time being. Trust you have no objection, Lord Van Zieks. None, my lord. Scotland Yard will recover the tea from the scene and carry out the requisite tests immediately. Trial will resume at the same hour tomorrow. Prosecution and defense may conduct further investigations as appropriate for the interim.
Yes, my lord.
Well, managed to scrape through there somehow. Your councils, court is adjourned until tomorrow. Okay, and that's gonna be where I end for tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. Exclamation point Discord if you want to join the Discord. Exclamation point socials if you want to follow my VODs channel, my Blue Sky. Otherwise, give me just a sec and we'll find someone to raid. Sin is streaming Undertale Yellow? Oh wait, Sin might be ending. Yeah, I just saw that in the stream preview. Also, hi Sin, how are you doing? DG's playing his Sekiro. I'm getting ready to end as well, Sin. I'm gonna raid DG. He's playing like a new game plus 97 of Sekiro. So I think he's actually doing something with like 3 games all at once currently. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I should hopefully be back with more of this tomorrow. But I guess other than that, have a good one and take care.